Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi, is coming, which means packed movie theaters, movie reviews, and more generic lightsaber videos like this one. That's right, we're only a few days away from the new Star Wars movie, Episode VIII, The Last Jedi. And this isn't just a Star Wars movie, this is a full-on episode with a number in Roman numerals. It's stereotypical to say, may the Force be with us. Well, may the Force be with us. My name is Just a Fan, and I'm here to talk about my thoughts on Star Wars in the past, as well as my thoughts on Star Wars in recent years. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. There are so many different directions Star Wars can go in, and none of us are really going to know for sure until we see each new episode. But for this Friday, I'm excited to join the droves of movie reviewers who will be talking about it. I'm going opening night, and I cannot wait. Now, when I was really young, Star Wars Episodes 4, 5, and 6 were pretty much some of my favorite movies. I'd watch them all the time and they would never get old. And those are classics. It's pretty hard to find anybody who says they're not good movies. Now, when Star Wars Episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, I was a little bit younger, which meant that I found it kind of cool. It was cool to see things explode and to see blasters and characters doing cool things. But after a while, I got a little bit older, and I think my thinking became more sophisticated. That in combination with watching movie reviewers and hearing about how people talk about movies, how people analyze movies, I was able to kind of create a new or my own different opinion about the Star Wars prequels. And at this point, when I say prequels, I say Episodes 1, 2, and 3 still, because now we have older Star Warses, new old Star Wars, and then now we're in the era of new Star Wars, which is absolutely crazy. By the way, these robes are like huge. It's like, it's so cumbersome. I've never worn something so huge in my entire life. So I do stand in the crowd that says Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are not my favorite Star Wars movies ever. Fun fact, Dee Williams, the man himself, Lando Calrissian, he was the first celebrity I ever talked to in person. He was awesome, too. He told me he liked my hat, and we had a pretty good basic conversation. I say to you, thank you, Dee Williams, for giving me such a pleasant first experience with meeting a famous person. I actually met Carrie Fisher, and she was great. I'm actually really upset that she's not around anymore. Just the fact that there's someone gone from my childhood who I admired so much in the cinema is pretty sad. And the two Star Wars movies to compare recently seem to be Star Wars Episode VII and Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. I really honestly don't know how I feel about a Rogue One story, or Stars One, a Rogue story. Star Wars, a Rogue, oh my, I can't even do it now. I did enjoy watching Star Wars Episode VII quite a bit more than Star Wars A Rogue One Story. And I should say, I did only see Rogue One time in the theater, and in those 2 hours or so, I was pretty confused. I wasn't even sure what to think about the characters, I wasn't really sure what to think about how they were portrayed, or even the first half of the movie. It was so confusing watching some guy get attacked or get something to by some weird tentacle monster. I mean, monsters and aliens and unfamiliar things to humans have been a part of Star Wars forever, but what was even going on in that movie for half of it? It really confuses me, but really when it comes down to it, there's things like the fact that I can't even name a single character in Rogue One, whereas I could name many characters in Star Wars Episode VII, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't have anything to do with the single viewing I had of Rogue One. There just weren't any characters for me to attach to when watching Rogue One. And I knew the story. Of course, they were going to get the Death Star plans. That wasn't something I was necessarily going to be confused about, but leading the viewer through that story of where they got the plans, or how this movie portrayed how they got the plans, just didn't work for me. So I do feel bad for saying I'm not really sure how I feel about a Star Wars movie, but I'm honestly not so sure how I feel about this Star Wars movie. Let's see, have I met any other Star Wars actors or stars from the movies? Let's take a look. Here's some Star Trek, which you might hate me, but I've actually never seen an episode of Star Trek in my entire life. Nope. What else do we have? Oh, so here's the autograph. I showed the picture I got with Carrie Fisher earlier. Here's the autograph that I got from her. And I gotta say, this was actually the longest line I've ever had to wait through, other than meeting Stan Lee. Isn't that amazing, how meeting Stan Lee was only rivaled by meeting Carrie Fisher? I already showed the picture I got with her, so that part's been done. There's some Doctor Who and some Firefly, and I do like this one quite a bit. I got to meet Peter Mayhew, and whenever I show people this picture, I do tell them I wish he was standing up in this one, because wouldn't it be so much more fun to just watch him towering over me? He was really cool, though. I like how he does his pictures, and he does seem to have a pretty, good attitude about doing them for fans like me. Here's some Harry Potter, which, not Daniel Radcliffe, by the way. If I had met Daniel Radcliffe, I would have been way more excited about that. Some Back to the Future. That was probably the most important day of my life. Adam Savage, John Heder, so that Napoleon Dynamite guy, John Heder. Here's one thing that's been more prominently in my mind ever since Episode 8 started coming closer and closer, and that's, what are they going to do with the original actors who are still a part of the new Star Wars movies? Obviously, we lost Han Solo in the last movie, Episode VII. He did kick the bucket, or more like he fell in a giant bucket, I guess. But some people don't seem to know still that in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, his character was originally written in to die during that episode. So that was almost finishing off an earlier plan that hadn't really been fully conceived yet. I definitely don't want them to kill off any more original characters, and this is because of a bias. I do love my original Star Wars childhood. I do love those original movies, Episodes 4, 5, and 6. So now that we've lost Han Solo in the movies, and we've unfortunately lost Carrie Fisher in real life, which I'm legitimately upset about, Luke Skywalker and the actor Mark Hamill are kind of the last two we have on both sides, and what can they do with that? The creators must realize what kind of impact it would have if the character of Luke Skywalker were to die, or were to not be in the series anymore, but at some point it has to happen. There are going to be so many more Star Wars movies, it's really hard to imagine that every single one is going to have Luke Skywalker. And here's another question I started asking myself just because I'm making this video here. Wouldn't it be interesting if they found a way to not kill off Luke Skywalker or even kill off Princess Leia, but find a way to kind of end their part in the story where they don't ever need to come back in another Star Wars movie? And that brings me to another point I want to make. I'm really extra excited about this new Star Wars Episode VIII movie, particularly because it's not the first new Star Wars movie since there's been a whole gap between Star Wars movies. What I mean by that is, when J.J. Abrams and the other Star Wars creators made Episode VII, they had to, once again, revive a franchise that hadn't been around for a while. 15 or 20 years ago, if you had said, hey, did you know J.J. Abrams is going to be directing Episode 7 for Star Wars? Most of us would have been saying, what? And here we are. So amazing things have been happening, but these amazing things are going to be, I think, responded to differently by the filmmakers now that Star Wars has already been brought back. Episode 8, I think, has more freedom to not return the franchise, but expand the franchise altogether anyway. Not that Episode 7 didn't necessarily expand the franchise, and some people would even say it just copied Episode 4, A New Hope anyway, so there was no expansion at all. I can see where people are coming from on that. Honestly, I'm just excited that Star Wars is still going. And I know not everyone feels that way. I'm sure there are some people out there who say the whole thing should have ended after Episode 6, and I'm sure there are some people out there who say the whole thing should have ended after Episode 3. But there are all kinds of things out there, not just Star Wars, that make us viewers, us readers, us video game players, all of us enjoy stories that we always want to see taken further. I can think of so many times, and I'm sure this applies to most of humanity, where people say, can't the story keep going? What happens next? Why does the story have to end here? I totally appreciate any perspective that says that things have been going wrong with Star Wars for a few years now. I know there's a lot of people, I'm one of them, who say things started getting pretty weird or messed up in Star Wars Episode 1, way back then. I say way back then, even though that was a brand new thing for a while. And then I'm sure there are some people who say things started getting pretty weird with Star Wars Episode 7, and that's fine. I'm not going to let that stop me from appreciating Star Wars movies as they still come out, but I do totally understand that just because I want to see more doesn't mean everybody else does, too. There's some Lord of the Rings, there's some more Firefly. Here we go. I did get to meet Deep Roy. That was a pretty exciting one. I guess he's the one playing Yoda right now, physically playing Yoda at that point. And he was really fun to meet. I did get a picture with Deep Roy as well, but that's more in my camera rather than on a photo that I was able to purchase on site. And just because it's here next to Deep Roy, here's my picture with Stan Lee, just because I mentioned him earlier. That was a very large line. He was a lot of fun. He seems like a very nice gentleman. Well, is there anything else I want to say about Star Wars Episode VIII right now? Not that I can think of. I mostly want to say things after I see the movie. And I do want to say this. As being just a fan, I am not spending a lot of time looking at other reviews, other opinions, other pre-movie videos like this one. My ideas are going to come from me and me alone. So if you do want to see my review on Star Wars Episode VIII, come back to this channel on either Friday or Saturday. Between one of those 2 days, it will be up, and hopefully I'll be saying a lot of good things about it. I'm not too worried that I'm going to be coming in here being like... I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be coming back saying, alright, that was good stuff, but I really can't know for sure. Either way, if you see the movie, which hopefully you will, please enjoy it. Try to avoid everything that's going to be dragging it down for you. Just appreciate Star Wars. Don't worry about those crazy movie critics who say everything is bad, or who often say things are bad. Just let yourself appreciate things the way you want to appreciate them, and if you are interested in someone else's opinion, then check it out. Just don't let it change your own. That's what I say. I'm just a fan, so what do I know anyway?